Hello everyone. Today's video I'm going to talk a little bit about my Neovim setup. So before we get started, I'm going to address a couple of questions that people have been asking me about in previous videos. The terminal I'm using is called Kitty, which allows me to have these fancy animations when I move my cursor around, as you can see right here. Right. This is called the Kitty terminal, as you can see right here. I'm using a window manager called Hyperland, and this lets me switch around windows easily. It allows me to do stuff like this, right? It's pretty neat. So that's what this is. And then if you want to refer to my configuration files, they're going to be under my GitHub, and I'll put all of these links down below. So if you go to my GitHub and then source, and then if you click on Neovim right here, or NVim, all of the code I will be going over will be in here today. So yeah, just some quick links for you to check out. Now, if we take a look at Neovim, I have it under here, right? One of the greatest pieces of advice I give to newcomers to Vim is that you should bind your caps lock key to escape, all right? So I'm pressing caps lock right here, and you can see I'm entering Vim mode. If I actually go into a file, like, sure, right? I'm pressing caps lock here, and I'm entering into Vim mode. And this just makes it easier because the whole point of Vim is that you don't have to move your hand to the mouse all the time, which means that if you have to move your pinky like an extra 4 inches to get to the caps lock button, it's just a lot of movement, and I just prefer having it right next to right on the caps lock key because I'm not using the caps lock anyways. So yeah, let's get started real quick. We're going to take a look at the init.lua file. So if you come over here, it's going to be under source. My Wi-Fi will load. Source nvim. It's taking a little while. Source nvim init.lua right here. All right, so this is where we're going to be starting, and then all of my stuff is going to be here. Right. So as you can see, I have my init.lua, and we have these 6 main sections that I split up my code into. I'm not actually going to be talking about Neovim too much today because it's you can check that out if you want, but we're going to talk about these 5 right here. Yeah, let's dive right in. We first off require core.lazy. What is this? Well, lazy is Lazy.nvim. Now, this is essentially a tool that lets you download packages, or packages for Neovim. So this is just from the basic configuration. I have I've also set some things that might be useful for the other plugins. For instance, map leader. Map leader will tell my quick actions which key to use to lead the key. So for instance, to open up my file finder, right, I'll press space F, and that opens up my files, right? So space just means that every command should be preceded by a space, if that kind of makes sense, right? So space, for example, space F would open my file, space C would comment this line, stuff like that, right? And then we are going to require lazy.setup plugins. And I'll talk about my plugins in a quick second, but let's take a look at the rest of core right now. So I have Lua, I have core, right? I have right here, let's talk about options, right? These are just some basic options. This clipboard here lets me copy to my system clipboard. I have a color column. Now, I heard this advice from the Prime engine, but it's pretty nice because it shows this column right here. And usually what happens is if your code gets indented too much, right? If your code starts getting indented too much, it gets hard to read. And this is sort of just to check that, oh, I'm not making my code go way too far to the end, right? So if your code ever reaches this point, you know you've done something wrong. That's how I like to look at it. I have ignore case. This just means when I'm searching through my commands, it ignores the casing I'm using, right? So you can see the capital F and lowercase f. I have lazy redraw, which is for macros. It'll help macros run faster by not redrawing to the screen. I have line numbers toggled on. I have relative numbers toggled on, and I have scroll off and scroll width. This is sort of like how much it leads by. It's like if I go to here, right, you can see there's always 4 lines above, right, when I scroll, and this is sort of what that is. Split below, split right. These determine how my windows will split, and I'm using the GUI colors, which lets me have better colors inside of Neovim. And let's see, win border, rounded. This gets me this kind of rounded LSP border, which I think kind of looks nice because it matches up with my window manager. So yeah, that's my basic options for Neovim. Just a quick look into there. let's keep on going through this. Let's take a look at my keymaps. These are some basic keymaps. I have leader up, down, left, right. This basically lets me split, handle split views. So if I split right here, right, I can go through the window. So I usually just prefer clicking with my mouse at that point. If I have J and K, right, this is buffer previous and buffer next. So space J will go a previous buffer, like these tabs right here, and then space K will go in front. All right, let's see. We have leader Q. This helps me delete a buffer. So let's say I'm not looking at options anymore. I can do space Q, that deletes it. And then let's take a look. We have space Y to yank the entire file, and then space V to edit my Neovim, which this is kind of outdated. I might not even use this in the future. And then this keymap sets, basically it means that when I have a line that goes super long, like that, right? When I press J and K, it'll go up and down within that line, if that kind of makes sense. Right. So now let's take a look at my Autocmds. This is stolen core, right? This is actually kind of interesting. So when I build stuff, right, like when I'm running a project, I want to really quickly be able to run stuff, right? So if I go into like YT and I say like main.ts or something, right? I can do something like console.log hello world. Maybe no semicolon there. Sorry, no comma there. If you take a look right here, I can press space E and it just executes the file. So space E is execute in my head, right? And then I also have space B, which builds files for languages that use a build system, right? And how I'm basically doing this is I'm running through a for loop, and I'm saying for each of these like pairs, right? We're gonna look at the file type, and then we're gonna take a look at the exec command and build command, right? So if data.build exists, right? If we have a build command specified, I'm going to bind leader B, so space B, as the build command. All right. So as you can see here, for example, if I take a look at TypeScript, right? The exec command is bun and using that file, right? So when I press space E, it'll run bun in a separate terminal, right? It'll split with the terminal and it'll run the bun file, or it'll have bun run the TypeScript file. And space B does the same thing, but just with the build command. Now I have something else here that's pretty nice. For development reasons, I like to have make files. Like if I'm doing a huge project, I can't think of one on the top of my head. Maybe if I go, yeah, I'm not sure where I would find one right now. But you can basically specify a make file, and then I can say I can bind data.build to make build and make exec, right? And this is basically lets me more easily configure what my build command. So if you want to take a look at make files, those are pretty nice, and the make system pretty cool. So yeah, I have insert enter, insert leave. What this does is pretty nice. So when I'm in command mode, I like to have relative line numbers. Why? Because let's say I want to jump 10 lines down to this astro line. Right? I can press 10J and I can press 10K, and it lets me see how far down each line is. If you look on the side right here. So when I enter insert mode, I'm going to have no relative numbers, and when I exit, I'm going to have relative numbers. And then these are just some quick things to say what file types each thing is. So yeah, nothing too much going on there. Let's take a look at LSP. Now this is actually kind of interesting. I used to use something called Mason, if you guys have heard of it before, to manage my servers, but I've found that the native Neovim LSP config is actually pretty good. So what I'll have is, because I'm using NixOS, if I come here and I come to packages lengths.nix, you'll see in my Nix configuration, I've already installed a bunch of packages. For instance, if I take a look at ClangD, right? So this is sort of the server for my C and C++ stuff, right? I already have Clang tools installed on my system, so I don't really need Mason with that extra bit of I guess bloat or unnecessary stuff in my system. So yeah, I just have a list of servers here, and I basically match that in my packages, right? So my system will automatically have those packages. But if you're not using Nix, or you just want to take a look at this, Mason.nvim or Mason LSP config. Yeah, this will work. Right, this is actually a pretty good thing to check out. It lets you install packages pretty easily. So yeah, highly recommend. Let me get a drink of water real quick. I have config for HTML as Elixir. This is for Elixir development. And down here, you can sort of specify some specific settings for each language, right? So I take a look here. I have languages such as Astro Server. So these are each of the LSPs, right? And maybe I didn't explain this before, but LSP is basically a language server protocol. It lets me have stuff like hover, right? So it'll show this stuff when I want to, and it basically helps your development experience go smoother. You can see I have all my languages up here, and I'm configuring them each a little bit down here as well. All right. And I'm going to say enable. This says that I want to enable all these servers, and they're all going to be online when I open up a file. And these signs, it's kind of cool. So if I go like this, I just have this nice symbol. I like the red dot instead of the default one. So yeah. And then let me take a look at this. Virtual lines only current line. This is actually going to be a separate plugin that I'm going to show you later. But yeah, so that's my LSP config. And then Neovim, I said I glanced through this really quick. Neovim is sort of a GUI application or a GUI front end for Neovim. So if you want to take a look at it, it's just called Neovim, right? If I take a look at Neovim, I used to use this a lot, but I've transferred over to Kitty in recent times. So if you want to take a look at this, it's pretty nice. It has some animations. It's pretty nice GUI. So yeah. Let's take a look at my plugins. Let's start off with how Neovim looks, right? So I'm going to go through this a little bit. And yeah, I'll start from the top. My color scheme. Now, I love Linux because you get to customize a lot of stuff, which means that basically all of my apps, like if you take a look at my my file explorer and my my browser and stuff, they all use the same color scheme, which I really like because it kind of matches everything together, right? It's called Capuchin. I really love this color scheme because it has a lot of, it's ported to a lot of different software, right? So we'll import this, and this basically lets me specify my color scheme, right? It also lets me get access to its palette so I can configure other stuff as well. If we take a look at Lua line is essentially this line right here, right? And I think it just looks really cool compared to the default one. And as you can see, I'm depending on Capuchin. If we take a look at here, I'm specifying the separators, so it looks kind of like this bubbly feel, right? And then I'm basically saying, okay, so Lua line A, this is going to be the mode, right? So that's going to be mode normal, right? Lua line B is going to be the file name, so ui.lua, and then I'm going to have a branch, right? So it's main. Lua line C, X, these kind of like the middle here. I don't really have anything there. If we take a look at Lua line Y, this will be the file type and then progress. So it's going to be file type Lua and then the progress 27%. And then the last one I'm going to have location, right? So this is row 41, column 13. And yeah, I have a couple of inactive sections right here, which is not really interesting. Take a look at buffer line. This is sort of this buffer line right here. Also, you could think of it as tabs like you'd see in Firefox or Chrome. And these also use my Capuchin color scheme, which is kind of nice. If you take a look right here, I'm using this slant type, which makes them look like actual tabs, which I think is really cool. And I also have an icon here. So this is a diagnostics indicator, right? Which it's kind of nice because if I go right here and I kill something, right, you can see it gives me a little warning that there's something wrong with this file. And I just think that's kind of nice. And I have a little thing right there. So essentially it's a function, right? It takes the level and it parses it to the icon you want it to be. I have this pin here. I rarely use this, but you can pin something in it. You can kind of pin it if it's useful. But I kind of don't really use this anymore because I have something else called Harpoon now, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. But I have nvim material icon. I really like this because it's an icon pack, right? As you can see, if I look at my files, right, I have these kind of file icon things. If I open up another project, like if I go right here, right, you can see all these different file types. They all have different icons on them, and I just think it looks kind of nice. So that's what that is. If we take a look at wilder.nvim, this is essentially this little search right here. Right, so I can search for commands, and it just has a nice little pop-up that I think looks cool. Right, it has floated borders, it has rounded, and there was this issue I ran into because I think you might want to be careful with this plugin because I think it has been maintained a long time, but it's definitely kind of cool, and I just enjoy having something that matches my LSP with like the little rounded border and stuff. So yeah, if you want to take a look at that, you can. And fidget.nvim, this kind of has it kind of like has the little thing that pops up. So if I quit out of here and I open it back up, right? So plugins UI.lua, this does this right here, which I think is kind of neat. I just have that there because I like it. Next up, dashboard. Dashboard. So this some people won't really like this dashboard because it's kind of, I guess it's not really too useful. But what I can do is if I quit Neovim and I just open it by default, you can see, let me zoom out a little bit. You can see it has this like Neovim text. I gotta zoom out even more. You can see it has this Neovim text, right? And it shows me some most recent files, right? This is just kind of nice. I just like having the Neovim thing pop up. But if I take a look back at this, I essentially have it configured so that it displays this text when I open it up. And I can open a new file by pressing the key O, right? I can find files by pressing the key F, and I can edit my settings, which again, I'm slowly moving away from this because I'm just using Home Manager and stuff for that. So yeah, if you want to have a nice little dashboard when you first open up Neovim, it's a cool plugin to check out. Next up, let's take a look at the LSP. So as I said before, this Mason LSP, I used to use this a lot before I really went into the NixOS stuff. But yeah, this is sort of a package manager that manages different packages for your languages, and I just think it's kind of nice. So I have stuff like MDX Analyzer. This is one I didn't have packaged with NixOS, so it's kind of nice to have this installed. If we look up here, I have Neovim nvim LSP config. Now, LSP config is a really nice tool because it's essentially a collection of configurations for any language you could think of, right? So the default Neovim LSP implementation, it doesn't include a lot of common defaults that you'd want. So this is just sort of a community thing where everyone kind of pitches in and they have configs for each individual language. And this is essentially what I'm using in core LSP.lua. If I can open it up. Right, so if we take a look at here, I don't actually think it would be in here, but essentially this is what core LSP is using because it has all of these servers right here. I have CMP nvim LSP. This essentially is the completion I have, which I'll show next, right? I'll show next in the list. But I'll get to this in a bit. lspsaga.nvim. This I really love. This is a neat little plugin that, if I open it up, LSP Saga. Essentially, it's a bundle of a lot of different. We open up through here. My Wi-Fi is acting a little bit slow here. Come on, you got this. Yeah, so lspsaga.nvim, right? This essentially is a collection of different useful configs that are good. So for example, you have a finder for finding like symbols, you have diagnostic, hover, rename. The default Neovim has a lot of these things built in. Like Neovim by default has a hover with its own LSP, but I've just found that LSP Saga does a much better job. So if I hover on this, you can see it has this nice little pop-up right here. And yeah, so I have a HUD right here. So leader H will, what is it? Leader H will hover, right? So if I press leader H, it'll hover here. If I press letter A, it'll do a code action. Maybe if I don't actually know if there's any code actions available. Let me come over here. What's like a, I don't know, main.ts, sure. Any code actions here? Yeah. So these are kind of actions that are like that are from the LSP, and it'll help you do some things easier, such as cleaning up unused imports and stuff. Okay. So space A will get us a code action. I have space R, which is for renaming stuff. So if I have a variable that needs to be renamed, I probably shouldn't have closed that off here. Let me open it back up. If I press space R, you can see I can rename this to like this, and I'll rename all the occurrences of that in my project, right? And then I have leader D right here, which is the finder. So if I want to take a look at where this variable appears, I can press leader D, and it'll show me a list of. It's bugging right now. Yeah. So it'll show me a list of where it's all mentioned, and I think this is just a kind of a nice way to take a look at it. I have lsp signature.nvim. lsp signature. Oh, this is like the function stuff, right? So if I start typing like mount, right, you can see it as I'm typing the function, it'll give me the parameters that it takes. So this is just kind of nice to know exactly like what parameter you're doing, and it's just easier to type functions out using this. Let's take a look here. lsp lines.nvim. So this is sort of a better way of looking at errors. If I delete this right here, you can see it has this nice little pop-up that has this arrow here, and it says cannot find name app, right? So that's what LSP lines is, and I think that's what I was referencing earlier in here. The diagnostic.config with the virtual lines. This is necessary to make this work right here. So yeah, that's a lot of my LSP stuff. And as I was saying, I was going to get to this CMP stuff. So that's what we're going to take a look at next. CMP stands for completion. So this is NVIM completion, right? And you can see we have a couple of dependencies here. We have Lewis snip, which is a way of generating snippets from code. We have LSP kind. I'm not actually sure what this does. CMP Lewis snip. This is just an integration for Lewis snip here. And then Super Maven. I used to use Copilot a lot, but Copilot is really slow. And Super Maven I just found is faster. And usually I don't know, I treat like generative AI completion as just that, like code completion, just a better LSP, which is my main use for Super Maven. So if we're doing stuff like let's say I'm doing transforms in like linear algebra and stuff, and I know it's the next line is going to be like 0, 1, 0, 1 or something in a matrix. I don't want to type that out, and Super Maven's good at doing that, right? I don't like using Copilot or Super Maven for writing huge blocks of code. I more use it as a small like completion tool to get my thoughts out easier, if that kind of makes sense. So yeah, a little bit of a rant about AI there, but if we take a look at it here, I have I require all of this stuff, right? And this is Lewis snip, right? So I have this snippets directory. I only use this mainly for competitive programming. So right now I only have snippets for C++, but you know I might add some later. Ooh, what is this? Oh, it's in my home stuff. Cd home. Wait, that is. Huh? Okay, I don't know why it's bugging right now, but if you kind of take a look at this, this basically says when I type like competitive programming, ignore the abbreviation there. Yeah, it means competitive programming. It'll complete out to be this line, right? Or read file will complete out to be all of this stuff. So that's essentially what it is, right? It's just a file with all the snippets inside. So I have these sources. I have a source from Super Maven. I have a source from NVIM LSP, and then Lewis snip. As you can see, these are some nice defaults I like to have. Control space is just when stuff isn't showing up. I can press Control space and it'll pop up with the completion right here. Control K will confirm it, and then yeah. So Control K will confirm the current one I want. If, for instance, I start typing like MO, right? I have this mount right here. MO, right? If I press Control K, it'll accept that completion. That's essentially what it means. Control N and Control P cycle to the next for N for next and P for previous, right? So if I start typing mal, right, I can press Control N and this cycles forwards or down, and I can press Control P and it cycles up, right? So next, previous, right? And I press Control K to accept the completion. For formatting, I have this little star for any completions that SuperMaven makes, right? So for instance, if I say like I have SuperMaven off right now. Let me turn it on. Yeah, so console.log, right? I'm not actually sure why it's not showing up right here, but essentially it'll also show a little thing on the side. Oh yeah, right here. So you can see this first one is from SuperMaven, so it has a little star. It tells me that this is from the AI generated stuff. If we take a look right here, that this is for the snippets, it'll just expand the snippet, and then I'm saying that all of the windows I want are bordered. If we take a look at right here, this is SuperMaven. This is the AI completion tool I was talking about. It's essentially Copilot, but a little bit speedier, which is why I like it, because I didn't like to wait for Copilot to load, because I got the fastest hands in the West, and Copilot can't keep up. So I got to choose a bit of a faster buddy right here to help me code. So yeah, so I have SuperMaven, right? I'm saying that Control J is my accept key, right? So this actually confuses me a little bit sometimes. If I press if I start typing like MOUN, Control K will complete the first one, but Control J will complete based on the SuperMaven completion. So yeah, that's a little bit of AI completion and also snippets. So yeah, sweet. Let's take a look at Treesitter now. Treesitter is very simple. It provides syntax highlighting. The default Neovim syntax highlighting is pretty good, but Treesitter just does it better, and it also allows you to do stuff like tag different symbols in a file, which is nice to do. Especially, it also helps a lot of different plugins too. So yeah, I just have a list of languages here that I want to have syntax highlighting for, and it just colors everything. So like, for example, the false keyword or enable is colored purple here. We'll take a look at langs. This is language specific stuff, and for anyone who does development in any of these languages, I definitely recommend just going with the default that they have in these plugins right here. So I have Lazy.nvim. This is for Lua files, specifically for Neovim development, right? This gives me, because by default, Neovim doesn't have a way of telling you what's going on in your files, right? So if I press like Control H right here, you can see I can kind of see what's going on inside of LazyDev. I have HaskellTools.nvim, and this is a really nice tool. So if I open up, let's see if I have a what is this? Main.hs. Is there anything in here? Okay, sure. Yeah, let's take a look at this. Right. This is HaskellTools.nvim, and I found it works pretty well actually. And even if you ever saw the article called "Typing the Technical Interview," it's a pretty funny article. But I tried running that on this LSP, and it worked pretty fast. So yeah, Haskell Tools, definitely check it out. Rust.nvim, this is for Rust files, and we have FlutterTools.nvim. So Rust, Flutter, Haskell, and Lua. So pretty straightforward. Oh, and something about Lua, I actually think Lua is a pretty cool programming language with scripting, and like I see the reason why Neovim kind of chose it as its scripting language now, because I was working on a project at work, and I just found, like, I was thinking we had to sort of make a way to configure our application, And I just decided to go with Lua because I was like, I have a little bit of experience with it in Neovim. And I was using Golang for a server. And basically, I was able to whip together a Lua like interpreter in like half an hour, right? Just like plugged it in straight into our service. And that was really sold me on, oh wow, Lua is just a very easy language to plug in and it just works. Like the syntax is very minimal and stuff. So yeah, if you ever get started with like Neovim configuration and stuff, it's just very quick to learn how Lua works and you can do a lot of crazy stuff with it. So yeah, just a little bit of a side tangent there. But let's take a look at tooling. Tooling, I specifically have essentially two things in tooling. I have a formatter and I have a linter. The difference is formatting is when I save. So if I go like this, right? Oh, I destroyed my formatting. If I press :W to save the file, it'll automatically format for me. So as you can see, you can take a look through this list. I'll scroll down slowly. For most of the JavaScript types of stuff, I use Prettier D to be exact, because this is a daemon. Prettier D will run on a daemon. It'll be a lot faster than the default Prettier that you usually find. Elixir, I use just the standard mix format. Godot script is GD format. Go is Go format, or Molu for Haskell. Tech for LaTeX files. Stylua for Lua. And this is actually pretty nice. So if you look, I have a stylua.toml. This helps me format the Lua stuff, and you can copy that if you want. Let's see. Nix format for NixOS and Nix configs. I have Rust format. I have Black for Python, and I have like variable for Verilog and type style for types. If shout out to the types fans I got out there. Format after save. This essentially says that after each save, I want to format a file, which is the default workflow I want to work with. I just prefer to have code formatted. It's like more of an aesthetics thing to me. So I always like to have clean looking code. Yeah, and these are just sort of my sort of the like other configs that weren't available. So I just had to raw dog code them in. I have a linter here. This just helps me kind of lint my projects. Linting is just telling you stuff in your project that are like common mistakes, right? So common mistakes you might make, and linters just help you catch those. So yeah, I have ESLint. Again, _D is a daemon, so it runs faster. It doesn't have to start up the process each time. All right, let's take a look at Telescope. The next two here, Telescope and Harpoon, these are how I get around a project quickly. All right, these are two very speedy tools that make the development process a lot faster. So I take a look at here, right? I have Telescope. This is what happens when I press space F and I can see all these files, right? It's essentially a fuzzy finder, right? It's a fuzzy finder, and if I fuzzy find stuff, I don't have to look through the whole tree structure, right? Like if you use like Visual Studio Code or something, you might be used to having like a little file explorer here. When your code is nested 4 folders deep, it's just much faster to start typing the name and find the file, right? So if I want to find the LSP file, I got it right here. I come down here, bam, I'm there already, right? That's just what Telescope is for. If you're still using the tree directory kind of thing, I just highly recommend switching over to Telescope. It makes your life a whole lot faster, right? This is just a lot of UI stuff, configuring how it looks and stuff. And on that topic, so for finding files, right? This is for quickly finding something, right? Like if I know the name of the file I want, I can press space F and I can get there very, very fast, right? You can also notice if I press space N, it shows this completely different thing. This is actually in my miscellaneous stuff, right? I'll get to the rest of these in a second, but this is something called Yazi, right? It is like, I think it's Chinese, Yazi, like duck. It's a terminal file explorer, which is really nice because it works very well with Vim. So if I take a look at stuff with space N, it'll open up Yazi, and it'll show all of these folders here. So I can basically move around with my Vim commands. If you want to check it out, let me actually show you this. Yeah, this right here. right? It's essentially a terminal file explorer with built-in Vim commands, right? So if I want to move around, like L will move me forward in the directories, H will move me back. I can move up and down with J and K, right? I can create a new file with A. I can also like cut files with X, or copy with yank, right, with Y. And I just think it's a nice little tool for moving around a project if you want to do stuff like file management, like moving files around and stuff. Anything else, the fuzzy finder is always there. Let's take a look at Harpoon. So this is from the Phylogeny. I was a bit skeptical of this plugin at first, but I think it has some pretty nice use cases, especially in large projects. This basically means that when I press space M, I mark a file, right? So space M marks a file, and if I open up this space P right here, it'll show me an explorer, basically a text file of all of the files I have marked. So let's say I mark Harpoon, and then I mark LSP, right? As you can see, I have Harpoon and LSP in 1 and 2. So if I press space 1, it'll bring me to Harpoon. If I press space 2, it'll bring me to LSP. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You can see how like if I have like 4 main files that I use very frequently in a project, I can just mark them all and they just show up here, right? And what's nice about this is because it's a text file, if I don't want these anymore, I can just straight up delete them and write it. Right, and that's what I think. It's just a pretty cool tool. Definitely solves the problem of having to navigate around in huge projects. And this basically just sets my keymap. So space 1 through 9, space 0 through 9, I guess, moves through the list. Yeah, and then finally, let's talk about my miscellaneous plugins. The video is getting a bit long, so I'll try to wrap this up quick. Presence.nvim, this gives me a Discord presence. I'm not going to open up Discord right now because I don't want to leak my confidential information. But presence basically just shows you a Discord presence there. Blamer.nvim, it shows you Git changes, right? So if I make a change right here, right, it'll show me on the side right here that it's been changed in Git, and that's really nice. I have to-do comments. I love this plugin because, like, let's say I need to log off for the day and I have something I need to do, right? If I type to do, oh, that's not the way to comment. To do, right? It'll show me like a big glaring to do right there, and it just helps me like pinpoint stuff I need to do in the future. I can do stuff like warn, which is a warning. I can do stuff like a bug, which tells me I need to fix a bug. Info, I think also works, right? Just a bunch of cool stuff, and definitely check out to-do comments if you just like to mark stuff in your files that you want to get back to later. Rainbow delimiters.nvim. Rainbow delimiters, I'm pretty sure this is the brackets right here. So as you can see, it matches up the same brackets with the same colors. And I think this is just a super nice plugin because I just want to know where a bracket ends, and this just makes it super apparent. Like this blue one right here ends right here, this red one or orange one ends here, and that's what Rainbow delimiters does. It's like Rainbow, I think it's called like Rainbow parentheses 2 or something in VS Code. I think I used to use that, but definitely a must-have. Git signs. Blamer. Git signs. What is Blamer? No, Git signs is a Git changes. Like when I do this, what is Blamer? Let me actually take a look. Oh, I know what Blamer is. Blamer it's like this little line right here that tells me when the last time a file is modified, right? So it tells me that this line right here was modified on this date format is incorrect, but what is that, like 2024 July 13th, right? It'll say I made that change, right? So it just kind of lets me keep track of when things are changed. Headlines.nvim, this I'm pretty sure is just this right here. It'll show me like these breadcrumbs that let me know. Actually, you know what? Headlines. Oh, this is Markdown preview. That's right. I only have a comment right here. Headlines will give me some nice Markdown stuff. So if I go to YT here, if I open up like test.md, right? I can start typing Markdown stuff, and it'll kind of even format it or like kind of display it nicely for me. So this is just for working with Markdown files. Headlines.nvim, pretty nice. Yadza I just went over. It's a nice terminal file explorer. Pretty cool stuff. Plenary, this is just used for a bunch of other plugins, just like a list of dependencies, stuff like that. Vim Cool, this is highlight search, right? So when I search stuff, let's say I search Lazy, sure, right? This basically just makes the highlighting a bit better when I search for stuff. And it means that I can like exit out, I can do some stuff, and I can still go later on, right? So just nice highlighting there. Dressing, I'm not actually sure what this does. Let me take a look at it. Some of these, this is why it's called miscellaneous, because it's just cool stuff. Like, oh wow, it's archived. It's like I'm like a raccoon that's just collecting Vim plugins, and I don't know. This is just a graveyard of miscellaneous plugins. Core UI hooks. Oh, it just has like some nice UI stuff. That makes sense. Vim commentary. This lets me comment stuff. So I press space C, like letter C. You can see it comments in a lot of different file types. So it's the same as you would do in like Visual Studio Code with Control/ to comment stuff. This is just space C to comment. And then Waka time. This tells me how long I've been coding for. So I'm not a goon and I go outside and touch grass when I'm coding for 11 hours straight. And auto pairs. This just basically pairs together the it automatically completes the pairs right here, like as you can see right here. So yeah, I think that is about it. That was 40 minutes of straight yapping about Neovim, but it's something I enjoy, and I built this config over the course of many years. So I just thought I'd like to share it with you. I made a video like this a couple of years ago, but it got pretty old, and I have a lot of new stuff in here. A lot of stuff got moved around, so yeah, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and smash the like button. And yeah, that's about it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and peace, y'all.